My father's heart stopped at 4:17 on a Wednesday afternoon. By 8:30 that same evening, his wife had changed the locks on the front door. She was standing in the hallway when I came downstairs with my overnight bag, and she said the sentence she had been rehearsing since the hospital called. "This is my house now. Pack your things and go." I had a duffel bag, a laptop, and a set of keys to a building she did not know existed. I zipped the bag and walked past her without a word. She had no idea what she had just done. My mother died when I was 10. Her name was Helen, and she had brown hair and a quiet laugh, and a way of folding laundry that made it look like she was thinking about something else entirely. After she was gone, my father did not know what to do with a 10-year-old girl who cried in the bathtub every night. He was not built for conversations about feelings. He was built for spreadsheets and silence. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He taught me math. Every Saturday morning, he drove me around in his old truck and we looked at houses. Not to buy, just to look. He would pull up in front of a property and say, "What do you think this one's worth?" I would guess. He would correct me. Then he would explain why. Square footage, lot size, comparable sales, interest rates, the way a north-facing kitchen lost value in winter markets. By the time I was 12, I could read a mortgage statement faster than most adults. "Money does not fix everything," my father said one Saturday, idling in front of a 2-story colonial with a cracked driveway. "But it fixes a lot of things that people pretend have nothing to do with money." That same year, he married Linda. She came into the house with a 2-year-old daughter named Cora and a smile that covered every room like fresh paint. Within 6 months, my bedroom had been repainted and renamed Cora's playroom, and I was sleeping in the smallest room in the house, the one next to the garage that smelled like motor oil and cold concrete. My father said, "Linda had a hard time before. Be patient." I was 12. I was patient. Linda was not a bad person the way people in movies are bad. She did not yell or throw things. She was worse than that. She was thorough. Within 2 years, she had reorganized every room in the house to center around Cora. The family photos on the mantel shifted. First, a few of my mother were moved to the hallway, then to the upstairs landing, then to a box in the attic labeled old frames. Linda replaced them with studio portraits of herself, Douglas, and Cora. All 3 wore matching navy sweaters. I was not in the photo. I had not been invited to the session. She controlled the money too. She kept a spreadsheet on the family desktop. Every grocery run, every gas receipt, every subscription, she tracked it and presented it to my father on the 1st of each month. She called it their family budget review. It was the only meeting I was never invited to attend. By the time I was 14, my name was the one Linda forgot to write on the Christmas cards. She sent them every December. The Irving family on the front, a photo of the 3 of them on the back. When our neighbor asked why I was not in the picture, Linda laughed and said, "Oh, Paige is so busy with school. She never has time for photos." I was standing right there. I was not busy. I had been home all afternoon. My father heard the exchange. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He picked up his coffee and walked to the garage. That was the year I stopped expecting anyone to fix it for me. The summer I turned 16, my father drove me to his office on a Saturday morning. He closed the door, sat me down across from his desk, and opened a manila folder with my name on it. "I started this for you 2 years ago," he said. $5,000 in an index fund. It is in your name." I looked at the statement. The balance had grown to $6,200. He taught me how to read the quarterly reports. He handed me a pocket calculator, a cheap one with a cracked plastic case and buttons that stuck, and said, "Keep this. Do your own math. Always." I kept it. I still have it. He also started talking to me about a building he owned a partial stake in, a commercial property downtown, 6 floors, mostly office space. He had bought in when the neighborhood was rough and the price was low. "Someday this will be yours," he said, the way other fathers might say, "Someday, this truck will be yours." 6 years later, I graduated summa laude in forensic accounting. The fund my father started with $5,000 had grown to $62,000. And the building downtown was already in my name. He had transferred the first shares on my 18th birthday. I did not tell anyone. There was nothing to tell. It was just math. I left for college at 18 and did not come back. Not dramatically. No slamming doors, no tearful goodbyes. I packed 2 suitcases, loaded them into a used sedan, and drove east to a university 4 hours away. Linda waved from the kitchen window. Cora did not look up from the television. My father and I talked every Sunday. He would call at 9 o'clock in the morning before Linda was up, and we would spend 20 minutes going over the fund, the building shares, the market. He never asked about my classes. I never asked about Linda. It was our language, numbers instead of feelings, returns instead of apologies. And it worked. Each time I drove back to visit, something in the house had changed. The first year, my bedroom had been converted into a yoga studio. The second year, the garage had been remodeled into a craft room for Cora. The third year, there was not a single picture of me visible on the first floor of the house I grew up in. Linda never asked what I did for a living. She assumed, based on my coat and my car and my shoes, that I was getting by. Nothing more. The idea that I might be doing well did not occur to her because in her mind, I had always been the one who did not matter. Meanwhile, my father continued transferring shares of the commercial building into my name. By the time I was 28, I owned it entirely. The property had appreciated in ways that even he had not predicted. The neighborhood had gentrified. The tenants were paying market-rate leases. The building was worth more than every house on our street combined. My father was diagnosed with severe cardiomyopathy the spring I turned 32. The doctors said it could be managed. They did not say it would require Linda's permission to visit. But that is what happened. The first time I called to arrange a visit, Linda said, "He is resting." The doctor said no stress. The second time she said, "Douglas does not want visitors right now." The third time I drove to the house without calling. Linda met me at the door and said, "Paige, your father needs calm. You showing up unannounced is not calm." She closed the door. I stood on the porch for 2 minutes, then walked back to my car. I called my Aunt Maggie that night. Maggie was my father's younger sister, 70 years old, sharp as a tax audit, and the only person in the family who had never been charmed by Linda. "Linda has been telling the family you are too busy with work to visit," Maggie said. "She told the Hamiltons at church that you have not called in weeks." "I have called 14 times in the last month," I said. "I know. I also know she got Douglas to sign a financial power of attorney last Tuesday. She is on his bank accounts now." I sat in my apartment and felt the floor shift. Not because of the money. My assets were separate, untouchable. Because I recognized the pattern. Linda was not just managing Douglas's care. She was managing access. She was controlling who saw him, what they heard, what they believed. 3 weeks later, my father had his second stroke. Linda called the family, the cousins, the neighbors, the church group. She did not call me. I found out from a hospital nurse who recognized my last name in the system and called the emergency contact number my father had listed years ago, before Linda had the chance to change it. He died on a Wednesday. Of course it was a Wednesday. The hospital called me at 4:21 in the afternoon. I drove 3 hours in the dark. I did not turn on the radio. I did not cry. I thought about the last time I had seen my father, 6 weeks earlier, through the kitchen window as Linda walked me back to my car. He had been sitting at the table looking out at me, and he had raised one hand. Not a wave, just a lift of the palm, and held it there until I pulled out of the driveway. I had not been allowed inside that day. When I arrived at the house, there were cars in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see Linda in the kitchen arranging white chrysanthemums in a glass vase. She was wearing a black blouse. She looked like a woman who had been expecting this for a long time. I went in through the side door, my old way in. Linda appeared in the doorway of the yoga studio, my former bedroom, within 5 minutes. "You are not sleeping here," she said. "This is my house now. Your father would have wanted it that way." I looked at the mat, at the incense, at the speaker on the wall. None of this had been mine for a very long time. "Okay," I said. I picked up my bag, walked downstairs, and passed Cora on the staircase. She was standing 3 steps up, holding her phone against her chest. She did not speak. She looked at me the way you look at someone leaving a building you know they are not coming back to. I drove to a motel 4 miles down the highway. The key to the building downtown was in my coat pocket. I could feel its edge through the lining. I could have told her, right there in that hallway, that I owned a building worth more than every house on that street combined. But some truths are worth more when they arrive on schedule. I stayed at the Pinewood Motor Lodge for 5 nights. The room was $39 a night, and the mattress sagged in the middle. Every morning, I woke up before 6 o'clock and lay in the dark staring at the ceiling. In those moments, I did not think about money. I thought about my father, about the Saturday drives, about the calculator, about the way he raised his hand through the kitchen window the last time I saw him. Grief does not care how much money you have. It shows up at 3 o'clock in the morning in a motel room that smells like bleach, and it sits on the edge of the bed, and it waits. On the 3rd morning, I called my attorney, Mitchell Hale, a 46-year-old estate and asset protection lawyer I had retained 2 years earlier when I first realized Linda was positioning herself around my father's finances. He pulled the files and read the list back to me. The 6-story commercial building downtown, 100% in your name, transferred in stages between 2008 and 2020. The index fund, now valued at $4.2 million. The secondary real estate portfolio, diversified across 8 properties in 3 states, totaling $5.8 million. Total value under your name as of Douglas's date of death, approximately $28 million. None of it is part of his estate. None of it is subject to probate. None of it is Linda's to claim. I know, I said. I just needed to hear you say it. Then Maggie called on Tuesday morning. She did not say hello. She said, Linda withdrew $80,000 from the joint savings account yesterday using the financial power of attorney Douglas signed last spring. The power of attorney is not valid anymore, I said. It terminates when the principal dies. I know that. Apparently, the teller did not. Mitchell confirmed it within the hour. The transaction had posted. $80,000 withdrawn using a document that had legally expired the moment Douglas's heart stopped. The funeral had cost approximately $8,000. That left $72,000 unaccounted for. She is panicking, Mitchell said. She is grabbing what she can reach because she suspects there is something she cannot reach. He pulled the transaction records and began building a file. Every page another brick in a wall that Linda did not know was being built around her. The will reading was at the law office of Harlan Beckett, on the 2nd floor of a brick building on Main Street, above a dentist's office. Linda arrived first, wearing a black blazer and the same pearl earrings from the funeral. Cora followed behind her. They sat at the head of the table as though the seating chart had already been decided. Maggie came next in a navy blue dress and flat shoes that made no sound on the carpet. I was the last to walk in. Mitchell was beside me carrying a leather briefcase with brass clasps. Linda's eyes locked onto Mitchell immediately. Who is this? My attorney. Why do you need an attorney? Because I am also a beneficiary. Harlan cleared his throat and opened a folder. Before we begin reading the will, he said, I need to explain the structure of Douglas Irving's estate. He said structure the way an architect might say foundation, with the implication that what came next depended entirely on understanding this part first. He read the will slowly. To Linda, the family home at 47, Birchwood Lane, free and clear. To Cora, $20,000 from the education fund. That is the entirety of Douglas Irving's probate estate, Harlan said. Linda nodded. The house and the savings. That is what I expected. However, Harlan continued, I am obligated to inform all parties that the probate estate represents only a portion of the assets Douglas Irving accumulated during his lifetime. Over the course of approximately 18 years, Douglas Irving executed a series of legal asset transfers. These were completed during his lifetime with full legal documentation, tax filings, and notarized instruments. The assets in question are not part of his probate estate and are therefore not subject to distribution under this will. Linda's voice came out flat. Transfers? To whom? Harlan removed his glasses. He looked at me. The clock on the wall ticked 3 times before he spoke. To his daughter, Paige Irving. The silence that followed was not the kind that feels empty. It was the kind that feels full. Linda stood up. The legs of her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. What transfers? I am his wife. I have been his wife for 22 years. What are you talking about? Harlan gestured toward Mitchell. Mitchell stood, opened the brass clasps on his briefcase with 2 precise clicks and removed 3 folders. This is the deed of ownership for a 6-story commercial building located downtown. Originally purchased by Douglas Irving in 1999. Between 2008 and 2020, ownership was transferred in stages to Paige Irving through legally executed gift transfers. Each was filed with the county recorder, accompanied by gift tax returns, and notarized. He opened the second folder. This is the summary statement for an investment portfolio held in the name of Paige Irving since 2008, including index funds, dividend reinvestment accounts, and equity in 8 additional commercial properties across 3 states. He opened the third folder and set his hand on it. This is a consolidated asset valuation prepared by a certified public accountant as of the week of Douglas Irving's death. The total value of assets held under the name Paige Irving is approximately $28 million. Nobody moved. Cora's mouth opened. Maggie nodded once and folded her hands tighter. Linda stood gripping the edge of the table, her knuckles white against the dark wood. No, she said. That is his money. She stole it. Mitchell did not raise his voice. Every transaction was executed by Douglas Irving voluntarily with independent legal counsel over a period of 18 years. These are not estate assets. They are the personal property of Paige Irving. Linda turned to me. You knew. You sat in that house every Wednesday and ate my food and you knew. I looked at her. You kicked me out 4 hours after my father died. You changed the locks before his body was cold. You want to talk about what I knew? Mitchell was not finished. He placed one more sheet of paper in the center of the table. On the 9th day following Douglas Irving's death, a withdrawal of $80,000 was made from the joint savings account using a financial power of attorney signed by Douglas Irving in March. Under state law, a power of attorney terminates automatically upon the death of the principal. Douglas Irving died on October 11th. The withdrawal was made on October 20th. The document used to authorize it was no longer valid. The funeral expenses totaled $8,214. The withdrawal was $80,000. That leaves $71,786 unaccounted for. The room had the kind of quiet that happens when everyone is doing math in their heads at the same time. Harlan spoke carefully. Linda, I would advise you to consult with independent counsel before making any further statements regarding that transaction. Cora whispered, Mom. Just the one word. Please stop. Please sit down. Please tell me this is not what it looks like. Linda did not sit down. She did not speak. She stood at the head of the table with both hands gripping the edge, and for the first time in 22 years, she had nothing left to say. Then she dropped into the chair like someone had cut the strings. 22 years, she said. Her voice was smaller now. I cooked for him. I cleaned for him. I drove him to every appointment. I sat in the hospital for 11 hours the night of his first stroke. I held his hand. I did not have a career. I did not have savings before him. My first husband left me with a leased car and a maxed credit card and a daughter who was 18 months old. Douglas knew that. He promised me I would never go through that again. She looked at Harlan. Does none of that matter? The house is yours, Harlan said. The savings, minus the contested withdrawal, are part of the estate. Douglas did not leave you with nothing, Linda. He left me a house, she said. And he gave her $28 million. Maggie spoke for the first time. She had been sitting quietly, watching the room with patience and without commentary until the right moment. Douglas loved you, Linda. He married you because he loved you. But he also loved Paige, and he knew that you would never share willingly. So he made sure Paige was taken care of before it came to this. Linda looked at Maggie as though she had been slapped. You knew. I knew because Douglas told me years ago. He said, Linda will never let Paige have anything unless it is already done. He was not being cruel. He was being honest. I did not know, Linda whispered. I did not know any of this. And there it was. The truest sentence Linda had spoken in 22 years. She did not know because she had never asked. She had never considered the possibility that the quiet girl who washed dishes and drove home every Wednesday might matter more than she assumed. I stood up. Everyone in the room looked at me. I did not come here to take anything from anyone, I said. Everything under my name has been mine for years. I came here so that everyone in this room would know the truth. Not part of it. All of it. I looked at Linda. She did not look away. From today forward, I will not call. I will not visit. I will not explain. If you or Cora need to reach me, you can do it through Mitchell. I picked up my bag. I turned to Maggie. Thank you, Aunt Maggie. She nodded. We had always understood each other in the same shorthand my father used, a nod, a squeeze, a lifted palm. I walked toward the door. My shoes sounded on the hardwood, steady and unhurried. At the threshold, I stopped. I turned, not all the way, just enough to see Linda's profile at the head of the table. You said the house is yours, I said. Then keep it. I do not need it. I never did. I closed the door behind me. Not a slam, not a gentle pull. A firm close, the way my father taught me to close a deal. Quiet, deliberate, and final. In the parking lot, Mitchell fell into step beside me without speaking. He knew that some moments do not require commentary. At the bottom of the stairs, Arthur, one of my father's cousins, extended his hand. Your father would have been proud of you. I shook it. He would have told me to check the portfolio before driving home. Arthur almost laughed. I sat in the car for a long time after everyone had left. I stared through the windshield at the brick wall across the lot. There was a drain pipe running down the side of the building with a rust stain shaped like a question mark. I stared at it until my vision blurred, and then I cried. Not for the money. Not for Linda. Not for the 22 years of 3-place settings and missing Christmas cards and a yoga mat where my bed used to be. I cried for my father. Because he had known. He had seen it years ago, the way he saw undervalued properties and market corrections, and he had prepared for it the only way he knew how. Not with words, with documents, with 18 years of quiet transfers, each one a small act of love disguised as paperwork. 3 weeks after the reading, Linda hired an estate attorney named Brennan. He reviewed every document Mitchell had presented and called Linda back within a week. There is no basis for a challenge. The transfers were executed over 18 years by a competent adult with independent legal counsel. There is no evidence of undue influence, coercion, or diminished capacity. Douglas Irving knew exactly what he was doing. Linda argued that she had not been informed. Brennan said the law did not require a spouse to be informed of gifts made from individually owned assets. The building had been purchased before the marriage. The fund had been established with separate funds. Every subsequent contribution was traceable to his own earnings. The $80,000 was a separate matter. Mitchell sent a formal letter requesting the return of the $72,000 that exceeded the funeral costs. Linda's attorney advised her to comply. She did. The check arrived at Mitchell's office within 10 days. Cora sent me a text message 3 days later. It said, I did not know what she was going to do that night. I am sorry. I read it twice. I did not reply. Not because I was angry, but because I did not know what to say to someone who had watched me walk down a staircase with a duffel bag and had not said a single word. 6 months later, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the 7th floor of a building that overlooked a public park. Hardwood floors, enough counter space to cook a real meal, 2 east-facing windows so the morning light came in warm and landed on the spot where I put my desk. I opened my own consulting firm that spring. I called it Irving Compliance Group. Not as a tribute in the sentimental sense. My father would have hated sentimentality. It was a statement of origin. Everything I knew about numbers, about patience, about reading a ledger the way some people read poetry, it started with him. Maggie came for dinner once a month. She brought bread from the bakery near her house and a bottle of wine she swore was on sale, but never actually was. We ate at the small table by the window and talked about Douglas. Not with sadness, but with the particular kind of warmth that comes from knowing someone exactly as they were, without revision. He used to say you were the only person in the family who understood interest rates, Maggie told me one evening. He used to say that about everyone he liked, I said. She smiled. No, just you. I kept one thing from the old house. The calculator. It sat on my desk beside my laptop, a 30-year-old pocket calculator with a cracked plastic case, yellowed buttons, and a display that flickered when you pressed the equal sign too hard. The same one my father had handed me the summer I was 16, in his office, with the desk lamp humming and the AM radio murmuring behind us. The battery compartment had a piece of tape holding it shut, the same piece my father had put there when I was 17 and the latch broke during a Saturday drive. On a Tuesday morning, I picked it up. The plastic was warm from the sunlight coming through the window. I turned it on. The screen lit up, a faint gray-green glow. I typed in the number. 2800000. I looked at it for a long time. The screen held the number without judgment, without commentary, without applause. It was just math. The same way it had always been just math. On those Saturday drives, in the office with the desk lamp, on the quarterly calls, in the motel room at 3 o'clock in the morning. My father had said once, sitting in his truck outside a colonial with a cracked driveway, money does not fix everything, but knowing how to count it means you will never be caught off guard. He was right. I was never caught off guard. Not by Linda, not by the locks, not by the 3 chairs, not by any of it. But I would have traded every dollar on that screen to hear him say it one more time. I turned the calculator off. The screen went dark. I set it back on the desk. Then I picked up my coffee, opened my email, and started the day. Outside, the park was filling with joggers and dog walkers. The sun was still coming through the east window. The bread Maggie had brought on Sunday was still on the counter, wrapped in a cloth napkin, and there was enough left for toast. This was my life. I had built it. And it was enough. My father did not leave me money. He left me the one thing money cannot buy: the ability to never need anyone's permission to exist.